Hello, good evening. Welcome to Thursday's programme with Dominic Heel and me, Anne Davis.
Good evening. Well, new figures released today have shown that 1 in 8 of all young people in the East Midlands suffers from a mental health disorder.
Well, the information comes from NHS Digital and it paints a worrying picture of the mental well-being of children and young people in this region.
As you may know, all this week we've been running special features on what's being called a crisis in children's mental health. Sarah Teal has more on these new figures now. Sarah, this rise has been widely predicted.
Well, yes, it has, Dominic, because as we revealed earlier this week, the number of children in the East Midlands referred for specialist mental health support has risen dramatically, and today's figures back that up. They've been released by NHS Digital and they look at the mental health of children aged between 5 and 19. They show that over 12%, that's 1 in 8, have experienced at least one mental health disorder. It's a rise from the last time this data was collected back in 2004, which then showed 1 in 10 5 to 15-year-olds had a mental health problem. Now, looking more closely at our region, more boys than girls seem to be affected, and of those who suffer a mental health problem, around 7.5% had an emotional disorder like anxiety or depression. In today's special report, I've been to a secondary school where they've seen a rise in children needing support, and they try to teach children how to improve their mental health.
We all have mental health.
This is a Learning for Life lesson at Kimberley School in Nottinghamshire. Pupils are being taught about mental health.
It is as important to be mentally healthy as it is physically healthy.
The school is part of a pilot project being run through the NHS to provide better mental health support in schools. And here they have a team dedicated solely to supporting children's emotional well-being.
There's been a big increase in the amount of students that we see on a daily basis. Since I began working here at Kimberley 10 years ago, there was a staff of 2 dealing with these issues and concerns, and now that's developed into a team of 7, a student support team.
Just to meet demand?
Just to meet demands, yeah.
Wow. The National Education Union surveyed nearly 300 secondary school staff, and almost 70% of them said they're dealing with more mental health issues than 5 years ago.
Increasingly, children are being taught to high-stakes testing, so the amount of pressure that children have been put under is immense. It's not about their developmental learning, so we're seeing arts, drama, PE all being cut at a time when children need that.
Teenagers and adolescents, young people generally, are at a time in their lives when they're going through loads of changes, and it often feels like people don't really understand.
On top of that, pupils cite workload, exam pressure and friendship issues as sources of anxiety. While many argue that was the case decades ago, the children of this generation are exposed to a significant new source of stress: the explosion in social media.
3 children in every classroom suffer mental health problems fuelled by social media.
The social media side of things is having a massive influence on them, and just not being able to escape any of it, being at home, but you're still quite vulnerable to it as well. It's all about how you look and what you do and who you're hanging around with and what you like, and there's a lot of pressure on students to grow up and not be children anymore, and I think that's quite sad, really.
Does social media cause you stress?
Yeah, it can be. Definitely. Yeah, because you look up to people and you're like, oh, I'm not as good as that.
So when people are commenting on the post, being mean about you.
When people put nasty comments on my pictures.
It makes you feel angry and it makes you feel sad.
I can't come off it. No. My mum tells me to come off it, I can't come off it.
Even though it doesn't always make you feel good?
No.
How much pressure is actually put on schools to spot these problems and to deal with them?
Massive pressure. You feel personally responsible for these students at times, and we can't provide the full one-to-one experience that we would like to, because there are so many students that are in this situation. But we hope that we are providing enough to help them.
The government has promised ambitious plans to transform mental health services for children and young people, backed by £1.4 billion of funding. It includes a pledge to set up a new dedicated workforce to improve access to services through schools. Sarah Teal, BBC East Midlands Today.
Well, let's speak now to Kate Majeed from the Nottingham-based mental health charity. It's called the Sure Mind Foundation. Thanks for coming in, Kate. Now, you know you used to be a mental health nurse. In fact, you were for 30 years. So are these figures a surprise to you?
No, I'm afraid not. No, I wish they were, but no, they're not. I think this is something that's been coming for a while. What's great is that we now have the statistical evidence to back up what we've been thinking for some time with regard to the prevalence of mental health conditions.
As we saw from Sarah's report, this is a huge issue for schools, and there are support teams in place in some schools to deal with it. But are schools in any way the source of the problem, the competitive aspect, the SATs, the assessments?
I think they certainly have a part to play. The way that we educate our children is very focused on outcomes and less focused on developing the life skills that young people need in order to be able to thrive. So, yeah, they certainly have a part to play, but they are also key to the solution.
We talk about schools, but also obviously children spend a lot of time at home and nobody wants their child to suffer from mental health. Is there anything that parents should be doing to kind of stop it happening?
It's a really difficult one, that. For me, it's about understanding what's going on with your child, listening to your child, talking with your child. Of course, a lot of the difficulties that children will be demonstrating are natural progression of their development. So it's trying to understand what's a normal development for a child and actually what's heading into difficulties with regard to emotions.
Well, yeah, that's adolescence, isn't it? Is adolescence made worse and more difficult by social media? That's something that's come up all this week, really.
Yes, whilst ever we don't teach our children how to manage with the negative side of social media, it's going to have a negative effect. However, there's a lot of positive to social media too. The mental health community within social media can be very supportive. But unless we teach our kids how to manage the darker side of social media, it's going to have a detrimental effect.
OK, well, fingers crossed that somehow we can make these figures get better. But for now, Kate, thank you.
Thank you.
And for more information about organisations which offer support to children, you can contact the BBC Action Line.